Hey, this is Matt once again. What about another video? This is another paid request, this time for Ty. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, reviews, re-reviews, randomness, out of the blueness, whatever it may be, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for a film called War Dogs from 2016. It was directed by Todd Phillips, who mainly known for comedy. He did the Hangover trilogy, which the first one's the only good one, in my opinion. And he did Due Date, which I liked, more for Robert Downey Jr., not so much for Zach Galifianakis, because he was pretty irritating in that. But I thought Robert Downey Jr. was pretty funny. And then, of course, Todd Phillips would go on to direct Joker. And yes, I do know there's talks of a Joker 2, where Lady Gaga will be Harley Quinn, and they're going to make it a musical. And I'm like, that is the worst idea I've heard in a long time, and that's saying a lot. Joker doesn't need a sequel. I like Joker. It only needed one movie. To do a sequel with Lady Gaga, and I almost puked. Not even kidding. But this is kind of the film he directed that no one remembers or thinks of. Because when this film came out, it didn't really do much. And it was advertised as a comedy, but I don't think that was the right decision, because I think people would have thought this was more of the hangover, silly, goofy. It's not. In fact, I don't even find it much of a comedy. There are little moments here that are humorous, but it's hard to call this a comedy. It's not a hard-hitting drama, I'm not saying that, but it's based on a true story, but very, very loosely. But there are these two guys, Miles Teller and Jonah Hill play them. Miles Teller, he was in the recent Top Gun movie as the son of Goose. And his nickname in that movie was Rooster. He was a guy that worked with Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise saw him as, well, Top Gun Maverick. For those who haven't seen it, I'm not going to spoil it. But I don't mind him as an actor. I liked him in this movie called Bleed For Me. He was good in Top Gun Maverick. I liked him in this as well. He plays a guy who has a girlfriend. His girlfriend's having a baby. The only job he did is as a masseuse to rich guys. He bought this stuff that he's trying to sell. He can't sell it. He doesn't quite know what to do now that a baby's on the way. How is he going to afford it? And one day, he meets up with an old childhood friend, played by Jonah Hill. And Jonah Hill is being successful because technically he's an international arms dealer, where he, as he puts it, and I want to get the quote right, I sell to one gun nut, the U.S. military. And this is a thing that happened where, because of certain things, certain issues, George W., all that stuff, a lot of time other companies were able to put bids in first. Every Pentagon business were offered to small businesses for bidding. That include guns, that includes weaponry, bullets, all that stuff. Vests. Like, there's a thing here that says each soldier to be fully geared up takes like $17,500. And the thing, when it's so loosely based on it, I don't know exactly what's true and what's not, what's embellished, what's not. So I just looked at this as a film and not as a documentary. But one thing leads to another. Jonah Hill pulls Miles Teller into his business. And they start being much more successful selling weapons to the U.S. And then there's other things they have to do. They have to go to Jordan in order to get guns across the border, because the guns won't come this way, so they gotta go there and do it themselves until you get to the third act, where they have an even bigger deal and things go more haywire as they're dealing with Bradley Cooper, who's in the film. Bradley Cooper was in the Hangover films with Todd Phillips directing. Overall, I can say I liked this movie. This movie, in a weird way, reminded me of, I know this is going to sound weird, but Painting Dane by Michael Bay, not in terms of the style, because the style is completely different from Michael Bay's style, but in terms of, it seems like an idea that, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be sold on this, but it's done with enough energy, and when I say it doesn't have Michael Bay style, that doesn't mean it doesn't have any style at all. It made the story interesting as it went on to, okay, knowing more, like Painting Dane, about the bodybuilding, all that industry, and how crazy it is. Not just bodybuilding, but other stuff. Here, knowing a bit more about this arms dealer to sell to U.S. military. It's just something about the plot and how Jonah Hill, how he's able to get the business on this website and what things actually cost. And I'm guessing some of them is based on reality. And because our two leads did a fairly effective job, Miles Teller, I don't really care about the stuff between him and his girlfriend. That was the least interesting stuff. Because this, okay, I'm lying to her, then she finds out, then she's pissed. I didn't really care one way or another. But I do think Miles Teller worked well with Jonah Hill. And Jonah Hill, I know some people don't like him. I actually like Jonah Hill. I liked him in 2122 Jump Street. I liked him in Superbad. I thought he did a good job here, just like he did in The Wolf of Wall Street. A little bit more serious. Still comedic, but as Miles Teller's character puts it, Jonah Hill's character, he finds out who someone wanted him to be, and then he becomes that person. And he's a guy who, a little bit of a snake, a little bit of a chameleon in that sort, not physical-wise, but maybe personality-wise, like tries to be buddy-buddy with you, but might not have your interests at heart. It even has this laugh, this decently obnoxious, but not too much that I wanted to shut the movie off. And the movie actually made me interested in their endeavor. Actually made me intrigued as to where the story was going, because as loosely as this is based on, I didn't know the real ramifications until when the movie was over, and then I looked up some info on it. I'm like, oh, okay, this is... I just see why the movie was told in the first place. And it also has a pretty good soundtrack. You got House of Pain, Iggy Pop, Aerosmith, some pretty good songs scattered throughout the movie. And so, like I said, Jonah Hill gets Miles Teller into this business. Deal's working well. A Beretta deal for $600K. Transferring guns in Jordan to where they need to go. When I say their style, like there's a bit where they're traveling in the vehicle, and as they're about ready to get shot, you have the military coming the other way, and this bit of slow-mo where you have the America go, yeah, while the military's going by. And like I say, it's not comedy in the fact of like the Hangover or other stuff, or Todd Phillips. Didn't he also do Old School? I think he did. But again, when it's labeled as a comedy, maybe they just thought it was, they couldn't find a better way to describe the film, where there is a humorous underbelly to it. It's just that Todd Phillips' comedy, if you're thinking it's like Old School Hangover, I think you would be disappointed. But if you realize that it's not abrupt in your face, it's more of an underbelly of humor from time to time, as well as a little bit of drama, but not too full force of a drama. Those elements. I think it's actually a pretty decent film for what it needed to be. Now, they're going through their deals. The one deal in Jordan gets them $3 million. They become more and more successful, and they're buying matching fast cars, big old duplexes, big old apartments, I should say. They's doing fantastic. Until ultimately they get, as they call it, not the crumbs anymore. They get the whole fucking pie. This deal of $100 million with these AK-47 ammo, and that's when things go a bit tits up, and that's where they meet Bradley Cooper, who is an arms dealer, and he says, "I got all this stuff in Albania," and then again things don't really work at the exact favor that they want it to be. So before I get into more actual full spoilers, like I said, Miles Teller and Jonah Hill I thought worked well together. Jonah Hill, at least he was trying to do something a bit different. He was not just doing Superbad all over again. Like I said, I could at least appreciate in Wolf of Wall Street and this movie he's trying to do a little bit of different stuff. This one he did with James Franco, I was meh on. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It's where Jonah Hill is investigating James Franco. Is he or isn't he this killer or whatever? I forget the exact details of it. I remember the acting not being the problem, but just the movie itself went, that kind of reaction. To a point I don't really remember much about it. But I don't remember it being awful. But I can appreciate Jonah Hill trying to do something a bit different. And I don't even know what the last film he was in. I don't know. But like I said, some people don't like him. I actually don't mind him. I like him more than Zach Galifianakis and other people. Like I said, because of the soundtrack, because the style, the pace of the movie didn't bother me too much. I thought it moved quick enough to keep my interest to see where the story was going. Like I said, the stuff between him and his girlfriend, I just didn't really. I get that that's part of the story, but that's the least interesting part. But I get that it needs to be in there, but I don't know. It's not that the actors were bad, just in one ear out the other for me. Getting more into spoilers, what happens is that Bradley Cooper does give him the stuff, but he neglected to tell him that most of the ammo is the knockoff Chinese stuff, and you can't bring that over because that is purely illegal. So then Jonah Hill has this plan to take the bullets and box them in a different package to hide it, and don't tell anybody about it. And then he finds out that Bradley Cooper overcharged them, and he gets pissed off and wants to screw over Bradley Cooper. And Miles tells like, no, don't do that. Don't screw him over. But Jonah Hill said he won't, but he lied. So then Bradley Cooper threatens Miles Teller's character and may or may not have done something to the driver who has a family. And that's where you get a bit more of a confrontation between Miles Teller and Jonah Hill. And I would say the most effective scene to me is when Jonah Hill's trying to talk to him and Miles Teller's standing there literally going, "Are you ever not acting, man? I mean, you're just playing the part of my best friend. You're here because you're scared I'm going to talk to this and that person, and you're still acting." I thought that was a decently effective, but yet not too melodramatic. And then super spoilers, what happens is that I kind of wish there was a bit more of this portion where maybe if there was a bit more between Jonah Hill and Miles Teller, the friction of I mean, if they're embellishing so much, why not where these more quiet scenes of maybe Jonah Hill somewhere on the phone and Miles Teller somewhere on another phone, and you did film it like a Michael Mann type of cinematography. I mean, like soft spoken stuff on the phone and their childhood and what could or could not happen in the future, and Miles Teller wants to believe in it, but at the same time he can't because he knows even now it's an act. Like kind of like that scene I was talking about that they had in the movie, but a bit more expanded. Maybe a bit more. Will Jonah Hill do something to Miles Teller? Will he not do something to Miles Teller? Maybe a bit of suspense. Maybe a bit of not thriller, but maybe even getting close to that. Not really. It seems that that stuff goes rather quick. To the point of I barely registered that Jonah Hill's character gets 4 years, but Miles gets, I think, a few months house arrest. And that's also because of Kevin Pollak. He's in the film. He was Arnold Schwarzenegger's partner in End of Days. He was in A Few Good Men. He was in The Usual Suspects. He's in here as a guy who runs a series of laundromats who, while helping Miles Teller and Jonah Hill, he gets a payday. So he's in the movie. Bradley Cooper, for the little bits that he's in, he's fine. Didn't really have any issues with him. The ending, again, part of that embellishment, whether this did or didn't happen in real life, I have a feeling it didn't, because if it did, I doubt they'd admit it. The very last scene is Bradley Cooper going up to Miles Teller and thanking him, hey, when you got pinched, thanks for not naming me. Miles Teller's asked about his driver, and Bradley Cooper doesn't answer. So you get that part where the driver's been killed. And he apologizes for threatening Miles Teller's character and offers him money, going, no more questions. As an apology, I'm sorry that I beat you up. I was misinformed. Here's a suitcase of money. No more questions. And then the movie kind of ends with, will he take the money? Which at that point I'm like, why wouldn't he? Yeah, it's a moral thing, but at the same time I'm like, dude, it's not him still working. It's not him still being an arms dealer. This guy is intense. You might as well just take the fucking money, because if you tell anyone, you and your family don't get... I mean, I don't really know what they're going for with that ending, meaning I don't see I get the moral dilemma, but I didn't really feel the moral dilemma. I don't know if that made sense. Like, you maybe get it when people explain it with verbiage, but at the same time I'm like, well, what else is Miles Teller going to do? He liked the money before. He was under house arrest. Jonah Hill's in jail. I guess because, like, Miles Teller, other than a few instances and one little bit, I didn't feel like this big moral outrage of what they were doing was wrong. It was more about Miles Teller being angry that he got fucked over. And then that's the thing, is that it wasn't like they built up a big moral outrage within Miles Teller's character of, oh, I can't... He had doubts because he wasn't sure at first, but he was really gung-ho and having fun with Jonah Hill. And even his wife, who was a bit confused at first, when she's finally told, she goes on with it. Like, okay. It gets to the point that she leaves. But it feels like Miles Teller goes back to her because he almost got killed. And he was beaten up. He's got a black eye. And yeah, you say there's a bit of moral where the driver's missing. But the way it feels like it's more about, oh shit, I almost got killed and Jonah Hill lied to me and he's going to fuck me over. This is why I'm going to go back to just being a masseuse and I'm just going to go with back to my wife again. So it feels more about the self-preservation than morality. And that's why I didn't think the very final shot rang true. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. I don't know how else to explain it. It's not that it was a bad way to end it. It's like, I don't know if it's 100% earned in that factor. And again, it's not like, you know, worked for me, or it wasn't that option either. It was just, take this, no questions, goodbye. I'm like, again, with the way he is, why wouldn't he would just take it. But anyway, despite wishing a bit more of the Jonah Hill, Miles Teller, wish we saw a bit more of their animosity, like battle between the two. Not physically, but again, suspense, thriller, verbal. Because this stuff was pretty decent. Other than wishing for a little bit more of that, and a little bit more of the ending, and again, the love story being meh. I liked the two leads. I thought the story was intriguing. Despite how much is embellished, it let me know a little bit about how the market worked with military weaponry and small business companies. Did you hear about stuff, but understood a little bit more watching the film. And yeah, the soundtrack, it's a decent looking film. There's a nice budget behind it. And like I said, overall, the two leads were pretty good, and they worked rather well. And that helped the movie quite a bit, so. But yeah, War Dogs, didn't mind it. Thanks for watching. Take care. I think this was a nice step in the direction of going from Hangover films to Joker. You say, some would say the Hangover sequels because of how weird and like dark they try to get. This, to me, is much better than the Hangover sequels in terms of trying to take that step into a new direction and trying to do a different type of film that Todd Phillips was doing before. And then Joker cemented that. So, don't do a Joker 2, by the way. Just end it before it started. Thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.